Um, let's start looking at the BUNDs as ever, and the first thing that obviously stands out and has done to most people is that we're in now a double inside day. Uh, the Obviously the initial day came from here, low of 82, high of 90, and then we've gradually contracted within that range. The volume is incredibly poor still. Yesterday we dropped down an awful lot, and we're seeing with a hopefully a break on one side fairly imminent. At the minute, we're obviously at the top end of yesterday's range, so the bias is likely to be to the upside, but with the BUNDs, as ever, you never quite know. The levels as they are, the first one that stands out for me would be yesterday's IB high, 45. We did have a high TPO count around there. We had this VPOC from the initial day, and it's not too far really away from an old 50% and an old closing price. So 45 for me would be the first area if we were going to try and catch a break to the upside that should be reasonably well supported. If we do go through there, the 50% from yesterday lies at 33. That's just in front of the open and the 30 VPOC, so again potential there. And then moving further down, we've got this LVN that's still stuck here at 18, which looks particularly key. I would say that just under the 30s, if we just have a very, very quick look across at one of the half-hour charts, you can see we've got a couple of these fractal lows here at 28 and 29. The VWAP was in and around that area for a large portion of yesterday, and we've got this high candle here. So they do look like some good areas that are going to be supportive, but it could be an incredibly slow grind down there, and volume could be particularly light. As I've been saying to people for the last couple of days, this is an unusual shaped volume profile for the BUND. This looks more like what you'd see in the Euro stocks, this staggered tooth comb type. Really much more used to this sort of more curved, more rounded shape. But as the volume drops off, we're getting these staggers. So to the upside, should we start breaking, obviously 67's our yesterday's high, our break point from there. Above that, we've got this TPO top area here at 75 before we get to the 85s, which is the IB high and the high of 90s, with 92s the naked VPOC that runs from this day here just above there. Just another quick look at the 30-minute. You can see that 95 probably looks reasonably good. We just scrunch it up a bit and scroll across back to this day. You can see here it's this triple bottom that was made around this area. So again, just above those 92s, the 95 looks reasonably interesting. Above there, for me, there really isn't a great deal until we get to 09s. And you can see that that's just in front of, it's this bad high here, just in front of this naked VPOC here at 10. A quick look at the 60-minute, we do seem to have some sort of trend line building at the minute. It's only got 2 touches, so it's not the world's greatest trend line, I'm fully aware of that, but it does come from this high and run us down. So again, if we are maybe looking to preempt the break to the upside, potentially we could use this. What I would say is this, because it's only got these amount of touches, I would certainly be looking for another touch and then be looking for a close through the trend line. It's not something I'm going to buy initially on the break because it's just too speculative at the minute, but keeping an eye on it nonetheless. So they're the thoughts that we have for the BUND. We'll have to wait and see how they pan out. It really does look as if volume's going to be incredibly light. Again, we've got very, very low volume already this morning. We've had half an hour's trade and 7,000 lots done. and no real impetus to drive us one way or the other. So a patient, cautious approach is the most beneficial, I would have thought, at the minute. Moving on to the Euro stocks, we made a high yesterday at 34. It was based around the S&P. We did call the 20 area as particularly good yesterday, and that was the high of our day. The S&P backed off quite heavily from there, so that was a particularly good call across, and the Euro stocks responded by not even breaking the high of the gap area at 36, and at the moment we're just drifting back to the top end of the range, but looking a little bit undecided as to where it wants to go. Although these aren't inside days, you can see the last 3 days have been particularly appalling. We've had a double top here at 34 and a double bottom at 86. So I suppose technically just about an inside day there. And this day again is very, very similar and reflective of how quiet the markets have become at the minute. So the levels support-wise, I would be looking obviously at the 50% and the close, so 08 through to 10. That looks particularly of interest. Should we get through there, there isn't really a great deal in my opinion until we get down to about 98. I think you could reference the 03s. That does obviously marks a low on the S's, but for me, I would be looking more down here at the 98, 99 area. Through there, we've obviously got the double bottom followed by the 83s. But if we do start breaking down, the key areas are going to be just down here on this 50% and just in front of these singles. So we can reference the 74 ledge, but we do have 70s as an exposed 50%. We've got 71.2 is a Marabuzo. And again, we've got this high volume right on the single print at 68 and then just under the 66s. So for me, this area is absolutely key. Really should be supportive first time down there. And I would be particularly keen on participating at those levels. To the upside, it's all fairly same as. We have top of value and top of volume around the 26 mark, which could potentially hold us. We have got this old IB high here at 27, and 27s was our first port of call yesterday on the first day of the month drive up. Through there, I would probably ignore the 30s. I think 27s are important enough that if it's going to hold, it's going to hold for us there and not a few 6 through. Then we've got this double top here at 34 before we scroll back and come into the gap area. So we've got 36s, then we've got this bad low here at 40 with the closing print here at 46. So we make our way up to 52s and 55s closing print. And again, as I said yesterday, there was some concern on the roll that possibly we could be having the gap up to about 59. But they're the thoughts that I have. I think it's pretty difficult. It's pretty low volume. You could argue either way, really. You could say that this is some sort of bull flag developing. You could say that if we break to the upside of the stocks, obviously you've got the break point there. But again, it was a particularly weak close. And when you look at the way the S&P retraced, that is an incredibly weak close. We closed back through our open. We rejected this 20 area that we spoke about quite a lot and closed down at the low of the day. So there are signs that the S&P could be thinking vastly different things to Europe at the minute. But we'll just have to see. Just as a port of call, we are even through the 50% in the S&P, so is looking particularly difficult to try and use that this morning. I would just say 15.5 stands out as this LVN here from yesterday, and obviously we've got 14 and a quarter if we did want to try and reference a short area around the 27 mark in the Euro stocks. It may tie in with the SPU early on this morning. And as I say, in the BUNDs, first port of call really, if we are going to be bullish, we shouldn't really be going through 45 and take some sort of reference point from there. As I say, low volume, very difficult, mixed signals across. and I would advise a more considered and maybe slightly slower approach to the day at the minute. Alright guys, well I will see you all usual time at 1:45, and good luck. Thanks.